Types of contracts to determine wages and conditions is a very big and confusing topic. The possible questions we might get are: describe, explain, or outline the types of contracts used to determine wages and conditions. We might need to propose and justify which type of contract a business could use. And maybe we need to discuss, evaluate, or analyse a particular type of contract, its pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses, etc. So basically the way the system works is we've got the Fair Work Commission or the government at the top. They set every agreement or contract as a bare minimum must have the minimum wage, which they set, and the 10 minimum national employment standards, the NES. Make sure you know those. So any contract has got to have those as a starting point. And then let's say it's the mining industry. We could have a contract for every worker in the mining industry that is called an award, or you might say the term modern award. But then some employers say, we don't want that contract. We want one just for the workers in our business. So for example, BHP, that would be an enterprise or collective agreement. Now, if you take your workers out of this big pool called the award and put them on your own contract, those workers have got to be better off overall. It's got to pass the BOO test. But then you might have an individual worker that you want to have just a contract for them. That is called an individual contract. And again, if you take them off the award there, that's got to pass that better off overall test. So then we're left with three types of contracts. Awards, or you might say the term modern award, same thing. Enterprise agreement, collective agreement, same thing. And individual contract. So let's look at each. Award is for all workers in an industry. It acts as a safety net of minimum conditions and wages and conditions. Any other contract's got to be an improvement on that. Enterprise agreement is between one employer and their employees, and it's got to be better off overall. And an individual contract is just between an employer and one individual employee, and again, it's got to be better off overall. So for each of these contracts, we've got to know pros and cons. So an award, it is good because it's fair between everyone. We don't have to negotiate it. If I'm an employer, I don't need to negotiate this because it's already been done. Awards exist. And it's industry standard. I know my workers aren't going to get ripped off working for me because it's the same employment standards as every other business that uses it. However, it's inflexible. I can't reward my best employees. I can't tailor it to my workplace. So therefore, it could be a lack of employer motivation, and it's going to be difficult to recruit people if they can get the exact same contract at every other business in the industry. Workplace or enterprise or collective agreements. Pros, it's a bit more flexible. I can tailor it to the needs of my employees. So this would apply to all my employees. I can therefore use it as a recruitment tool, and I can motivate employees by sort of putting in better conditions or bonuses, etc. for them. Disadvantages: cost more literally, it's got to be better off overall. So it's going to cost me more money, so higher wages. Limited flexibility. I can tailor it to all my workers, but not individual employees. It's got to apply to everyone equally at my workplace. And I've got to negotiate it. That's going to take time and effort. Then we've got individual contracts. That's the most flexibility. You can have an individual contract for everyone. Great recruitment tool. We can offer workers a unique contract, and therefore we can tailor it to them and increase their motivation. Disadvantage is it's going to cost a lot more. Again, it's got to be better off overall, so it's probably going to be a higher wage. Competitiveness, everyone's getting different conditions. Well, that can create jealousies. And it's going to take ages to negotiate. If I negotiate an individual contract with everyone, that takes up time and money. Last thing we need to know is how are these contracts sort of negotiated and determined? And there's lots of things we could talk about. We'll just try and simplify it and say, look, the parties involved, who's that? So in a modern award, it's got to be made between a union, an employer, and employer associations. Enterprise agreements just between one employer and a group of employees within that business. A union can be involved. It's not essential though. Only involved if a majority of the workers at that business want them there. And an individual contract is obviously just between the individual and their employer. Who does it apply to? An award applies to all employees within a whole industry. An enterprise is a collective agreement just at one employer or business. And an individual contract is obviously just for one individual employee. Process for making them. The union with an award, union and employer association, either one, they get together, create an award, submit it to the government, Fair Work Commission, and then they approve or ratify it. They sort of make sure it meets the minimum conditions. What about enterprise agreement? Yeah, employees as a group negotiate collectively with their employer. Maybe the union's involved if they want them, but same thing. Submit it to the government approves it. Individual contract, just between the individual and their employer. They reach an agreement. You don't need to submit it to the government to be approved. Some other things that are different. The content, well, modern awards, they've all got to cover the minimum wage and the 10 national employment standards for each type of contract, but just look at how they're different. So basically this one here, enterprise agreement, it's got to leave you better off overall than the conditions here. And so does an individual contract. It's got to leave the employee better off overall than the conditions in the award. Then we got the role of trade unions. That's another thing we can look at as a difference. Essential with a modern award. You can't have an award without a union. Optional with an enterprise agreement, only if a majority of employees want them there. And with an individual contract, the union legally can't be involved. And duration. Awards are ongoing but revised every 4 years. Enterprise or collective agreement lasts for up to 4 years. And an individual contract, no limits on length. Basically determined between negotiation between the parties involved.